Hello, my name is Renée L. Rose. I'm the founder of Explore Art Talk. With Explore Art, our featured guests, we have meaningful conversations celebrating artistic and cultural diversity that makes our world extraordinary. So sit back, relax, and check out our content. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, there we are. Let me.
Do you hear me?
Okay. Sorry to be a few minutes late.
That's okay. Do you pronounce your name Deborah or Deborah? I have a cousin. I have several friends that spell their name your way, but they pronounce the name Deborah. That's why I want to make sure.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that a lot.
Oh, good. So how are you doing today?
I am so good. I'm just still like getting myself organized. I want to bring this up a little bit and bring up the sound a little bit.
You look great.
Thank you.
Yes, I love your background. Is that one?
Thank you. This is my artwork.
I know, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I've so been looking forward to this. Thank you.
I me too. When I listened to your interview with Bob, and then I went to your website, I was like, oh, I've gotta do a magazine on her. You are just so talented.
Thank you.
Talented.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, especially from someone who spends her life interviewing artists. That really means a lot to me.
Well, I love art and culture. I'm also, I haven't painted in a long time, but that's on my bucket list to start painting again.
I remember reading or hearing that you loved painting nature. Is that what I remember? And that you're a nature girl like me?
Oh, yes, that's what I was fascinated with too, that your art is all about nature and birds. And why don't you start off telling me how you got involved in becoming an artist?
Okay, and I have to confess, I made some notes because I know I sound, like a lot of artists, I'm like an introvert. And so I'm not really used to speaking in public. I can do it. Yeah. But I made notes so that I would remember all the things that I wanted to say.
Well, just relax, because I want my audience to get a feel of who you are.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So I think like a lot of artists, I knew I was an artist as a child. Like once I heard the word, it was like, oh yeah, that's me.
Oh, wow.
I just like, yeah, that's who I am at 5,
Oh, wow, 5 years old? Wow.
Yeah, I just knew it. So I was very fortunate. And I was also really fortunate that I don't live there anymore, but I grew up in New York City. Oh. And my parents had the wisdom. Back then, museums were free. So we went to the museums on the weekends as a family. And I think that seeing a lot of art really impacted me. And I think it also normalized being an artist.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this is what people do. People can be an artist,
Yes. We were both blessed in that sense, because I grew up in Chicago, but I've also been to New York. And yeah, the museums and being surrounded by all the culture and everything does affect.
Yeah, for sure. So that was big. I'm not, unlike probably a lot of the artists you interview, I'm not a product of academia. And I did study textile design at Fashion Institute of Technology in New York.
Oh, wow.
And I worked in the textile trades, as did my grandparents, who were immigrants. And I did that for 10 years. So I think I was very impacted by, pattern and decoration and making things beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
I always thought that's an important thing.
Yes. So
Making things beautiful is important.
it is. So your interest in the textiles, you said your family was into that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, on my mother's side, only two of her, like her mother and her brother, were the only family members who escaped Europe before the Holocaust.
Oh,
So one of them landed in New York, and like so many immigrants, worked in sweatshops because that's what they could do.
okay.
And my uncle was supposed to meet his sister in Brooklyn, and they took different ways out of Europe. And he ended up in, this is such a crazy story. He ended up in Buenos Aires. He thought he had a ticket to Brooklyn, to New York,
Oh my
to
gosh.
the Statue of Liberty, but he ended up in Argentina.
Yeah, a lot of Jewish people did go to Argentina too. You're right.
I
So
know. I don't know if by choice or by,
happenstance.
that's where for exactly.
Yeah.
But even in Argentina, he worked as a milliner. He made hats.
Oh,
And then my grandmother married my grandfather, who was a furrier. So the whole family is like, that was what that's what people did who were immigrants, at
yes,
least Jewish immigrants in New York.
yes.
They ended up in those towns. A lot of them ended up in
Very good living though. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so maybe this is natural that you automatically went into the textile part of it.
I think so. It's so interesting to be my age and look back and be able to connect all these little threads.
Yes, but isn't that funny? Because that's what life's about. It kind of molds you. And
Yes.
it really explains your depth and what you put into your sculptures, your installation, and your paintings. It makes sense. It makes a lot
Thank you.
of sense.
Thank you for seeing that. Thank you for seeing that and reading that in my work. That means a lot to me, Renee.
And I make it a point to interview all different types of artists. A lot of the artists I interview don't have academic backgrounds because I think art comes from a lot of different areas, not just academia.
I mean, I think so, but I have to confess that for many years, probably well into my 30s, I felt a sense of inadequacy and maybe even a little shame
Yeah.
that I couldn't go to college and I didn't have a BFA or an MFA, or that I didn't have any of these credentials. It was different than a lot of my colleagues who had those opportunities. And there was a long period of time that I felt like kind of bad about it, embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to report that at this stage of life, I feel like part of what makes my work unique is that I did not come from that. And the work really grew very organically and is really
it's not cookie cutter.
It's certainly not cookie cutter, and it's very like me, it's very like, or it's really who I am.
Yes. Yes, because I think my background, even though I always was an artist, I did professionally, my degrees and stuff are not in art. The art part came naturally and just with the flow of how I feel about nature and
right.
The arts. So I don't think that it's nice if you have a degree in art, but that doesn't make a person a great artist, in my opinion.
Well, it can or it cannot. I mean, I think there are many, many other factors at play.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I have, sort of eventually come to feel happy. I mean, I'm like at peace with who I am and where I came from. Yeah. And I feel like my work, like what you just said, my work shows all of that. It's just who I am.
Yes. So how did you mold your art practice to where it is now? Tell me about the beginnings of that.
I'm going to tell you about it. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. Let's see.
Talk about
sorry.
Talk about what comes to mind and what stands out for you, the way you would explain it.
The first thing I want to say is that the development of my art practice is and continues to be very, very organic.
Yes.
You know, it isn't like something that I have some idea and I like follow the idea. It's just organic. It just
comes from your heart.
It just comes, you know, and it changes. Like we change, like we grow up, like we evolve. And so the work is like that too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of women, I had a family, I became a single mom, you know, I had to have a day job to support the kids. That wasn't art related.
Yes.
So where I come from is where a lot of people come from. You know, we just sort of have to do what we have to do to get by. But I wanted to tell you this little story that I think conveys how important my art always was to me.
Yes.
So even though I was a single mom, even though I was economically challenged, I always had an art studio.
Oh.
And my friend Marie, like, hi Marie, if you're listening to this, my friend Marie would give me a hard time. She was like a big sister. And she would be like, you have no money. Why do you have this art studio? That's insane. Like, use your garage. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this to you. Like, I need an art studio, even if I only have 4 hours a week. I need the studio. It was like a placeholder for me.
Exactly.
It was like a promise to myself.
Exactly. Good for you. I'm glad you.
So here's the end of the story. 20 years later, Marie calls me and says, I have an apology. And I'm like, for what? She said, do you remember many years ago, I gave you a really hard time about having a studio? And I'm like, yeah, I remember. She said, well, I'm retired and I always wanted to be a writer. And we have a little old decrepit place on a lake north of the house where I go on the weekends and I write all weekend. And now I get it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. So thanks, Marie.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. So when you first started, did you start doing textile projects? How did that roll out? How did that happen?
That's a good question. I think I started doing things that a lot of artists do, like draw and paint and collage, and then my textile thing started to, like, you know, I did some like art quilting, you know, I tried a lot of things like a lot of people do, but it was like the call of textiles was so in my blood. Yeah. And in little training that I had was all textiles, because, you know, that's weaving, designing, that really crept into the work. And that's been the backbone of my work for decades.
Yes. So your pieces are so, I have to compliment you, they are so intricate.
Thank you. I'm right here. It's right here.
So much passion. And I've looked at all your videos of you making your art. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
Fascinating.
So here's another thing. The work is like us. Like, we're complicated, complex beings, all of us, right?
Yes.
We have a lot of layers. We have a lot of our parts. We have, you know, what we think and what our spirituality and, you know, all these different things that influence us. And I think what's the complexity of my work, it's complex, full of ideas, concepts, and it's complex and full of technique, many techniques. So I feel like in that way, the work is also like me and like you and like, you know, most people. It isn't simplistic, you know, there's a lot to it.
Yes, but it takes a lot of skill, because what's amazing is the individual pieces, but when you span out the colors, how they blend, girl, that takes some skill. I mean, maybe somebody can just attach something, but it takes some eye and some design and real artistic skill to make that pattern come out in a way it's formed. Oh, it's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That that really touches my heart. You
Yeah.
know, I also made a few questions for you
Oh,
for
gosh.
the interview.
Oh, God. We'll get to me later.
Well, we can maybe, you know, sort of weave them in and out, you know, a little bit, but I just wanted to give you forewarning. It's going both ways today.
Okay. No problem. It's a conversation. So a lot of your pieces, they're like feathers, right?
Yes.
So explain to me about that. I can obviously see that.
Right.
Yes.
So let me see how I can condense this a little bit. So the work is abstract, right? You're looking at it, you know.
Yeah.
However, in each of the feathers is a lot of narrative content. So the work is about, and really embedded in the work are many images of endangered birds. That's my passion. Like you, I love walking in the woods. I've spent, you know, weeks and months and years of my life in the woods, walking, listening, thinking, pondering. And that's a very important part of my life, continues to be. In fact, 2 summers ago, I hiked across Scotland with my best friend.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So that was really fun. So the work is about the endangered bird. So it makes sense that it has feathers, but I'm not trying to do anything realistic. So one of the tensions I think in the work, and I'd sort of like to hear what you see, you who look at a lot of work, is that there's this tension between the abstraction of the work and the narration of the work. And also, a lot of my work is very research based. I do a lot of reading. I really study things and read many, many books about mostly endangered birds. And I want to give credit in one of my influences to Rachel Carson, who wrote Silent Spring back in 1962. So when I read that book, I was in my early 20s, and it was the first book about science and environment that was written for the you know, the regular reader, not for science, someone who had a PhD or something like that. Now we all read books about like trees and mycology and all kinds of stuff, like that's normal. But she was the very first one who wrote a book like that for like just an average reader, to raise awareness about how birds were dying by the thousands because of DDT, because of poison in the environment. The eggs were like cracking early and they weren't hatching. They were too thin because of the DDT. So that was an early influence, my love of nature, and then reading about how we need to protect nature.
Yeah.
That it's incumbent on us to protect nature in some fashion.
And isn't it interesting how we haven't listened? We have.
Yeah, like, hello.
Earth is so in retaliation. There are so many issues going on that we are so ignoring, that are so obvious.
It's kind of sickening.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I feel like we all want to do something, right? We want to do something, right? And to make art that's about something you're passionate about and care about, it's like, that's my something. That's like one thing I can do.
Yeah.
But I feel like one of the things that I certainly welcome talking to you about is can we actually raise consciousness by making art about the problems of the world? Can we incite change?
That's why I do the magazine.
That's what I hope. And that's, you know, that's why we're having this conversation, but I really, really hope so.
I select artists based on an innate spiritual connection to them before I meet them and their art. And I feel art and culture can raise people's awareness and let their guards down and help them to approach subjects and other people that are not like you in a safe zone. It doesn't.
That's beautifully said. Yes, I completely agree with that.
Helps you to learn to be compassionate, understand diversity, approach subjects you don't understand, subjects you're afraid of. And when you meet other people, you can hopefully look at them differently and be more accepting.
Yeah.
I think when we had more art and culture into our education, I think globally people were a lot more sophisticated.
I completely agree with that.
Has caused a lot of societal divides. I think we have more in common in the world than we don't, but we focus on what we don't have in common.
That's right.
Which is a lot of ignorance.
That's ignorant. And, in terms of this work, we all have nature in common.
Yes.
Like we all live in the world. We all hear birds. Who doesn't love a bird?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to protect a bird or something fragile and vulnerable? I think that's almost universal. Maybe not entirely, but.
So I focus on artists globally. I'm hoping to expose people globally because a lot of people don't have access to art or culture, or they're intimidated to go into a magazine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Best galleries in the world are very intimidating of how they treat people when they come in. And also the whole academic part of art is great, but it's exclusionary to a lot of people. And I think art is very subjective. It's a very personal thing. What I like, you may not like, but there's art for everyone. And I think everybody's an artist, really. They just don't, some people don't know that they are. So
that's right. Because they're not encouraged. They're not like, not something like that you're.
Because I personally feel everything I've done in my life is from innateness. It came from the inside of me. And I've always, because I consider myself an explorer. I've always explored different multidisciplinary interests. I have a real diverse background. And I have friends from, oh God, all around the world from different backgrounds. And that's what makes me a rich person. They make me a rich person.
Right.
And it's like, I go from having friends in rural area that live on farms to cities to all around the world with different backgrounds. And it's like, I feel like I don't have enough time to explore all the things on earth.
I know. I mean,
yeah,
I'm of an age, of where people are starting to, pass to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I just I'm a glutton for art. I want to be here another 30 or 40 years, I used to say, I'm going to live to be 100. Then I started watching Instagram and you see these women who are 107 and they're playing jazz piano. And I'm like, I'm going to put it up to 110. Why not?
I'm 64 and I feel like a teenager. I feel like I have everything I need intellectually to just do everything I want to do. And I treat every day like it's an exploration.
And a blessing and a miracle.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Every day. I wake up and I count, I just do my gratitude the minute I wake up. And my husband is like, do you want your coffee yet? I'm like, I'm not done with my gratitudes. Give me a few more minutes.
I have beautiful plants all over my house. So nature is a part of me. Nature gives me energy.
Yeah.
So you look at your art, you're saying it's very abstract, but I look at it as very alive. Because the intricate details of how you do those feathers is like a representation of who those birds are and how complex
they are
of birds all over the world. The whole ecosystems of nature.
The whole ecosystem, how complex and interconnected.
Exactly.
We are not separate from that. We are the ecosystem with them.
It explains that in a work of art. What you just said. It talks about the individual birds, but how they're joined together to
to fly, to live, to exist.
Right,
You
right.
to that. And you took your time to explain to the viewer, this is what I see, this is what they are. Yeah.
Well, I have a few things to say about that. First of all, I don't mind. I want my viewer to come in wherever they're at.
Yeah.
If my viewer comes in and says, wow, that's really pretty, or wow, I just want to stand in front of this and look at it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me. I don't need them to like do the deep dive into, birds and the ecology and the endangered languages. And,
right.
if they want to step in closer and see what I'm all about, come on in, and there's always a little signage. I'm not someone who thinks that like art should only talk for itself. I don't believe that. I mean, I think we need to, because that's exclusionary. That's presuming a level of art education that most people don't have. Yeah. So we have to help translate our work. Whether people want to know more or not, I can't legislate that. And I'll take the interest from wherever, at whatever level it comes in.
Yes.
Well, I also don't think I'm the final arbiter of my art. I only have my own perspective, and I welcome hearing other people's perspectives.
Exactly. Well, I think the installations are beautiful. And
Thank you.
The fact that you do provide a little context, it really helps them understand, and they can get into the flow of it wherever they're at.
Exactly.
You know how there's a lot of art installations out there, and that's just me, that I'm like, okay. That I love conceptual and art installation work, but it has to have some harmony, and it has a certain vibration for me.
And accessibility.
Yes. And makes sense, and have some kind of, that it balances. That's just the way I am.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm totally with you on that.
Yes.
I don't want it to be inaccessible. I want people to enjoy it.
Yes.
And I think going back to the textile training, I'm not embarrassed to make things that are really beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, that's like mating plumage, like, come on.
Yes. Yes.
And then if I've invited you in because it's beautiful and you're like, I'm feasting on that. And then you're like, wait a minute, is that Yiddish? Or wait a minute, is that shorthand? Because I layer endangered languages into the work, because it's also, this came after organically from a lot of the research that indigenous cultures are threatened by the same factors that birds are.
Oh yeah, they are, especially
habitat fragmentation.
Yes.
Plants, relentless consumption, all of that. So that's why I layer them, on top of each other.
That I could apply it to plants, and also the ocean, all the species in the ocean. Same thing.
Birds are a stand-in, everyone can relate to a bird. So it isn't like, I mean, I have an attachment to birds, but I also recognize that in a way they're iconic.
Oh yeah.
They speak to, freedom and flight and movement, migration, changing, adaptation, all the things that we have to do to survive.
Yes. And
now we live in a rapidly heating climate, and we have to adapt to that. We created that problem, but now we have to adapt to that as well.
Adapting, we're not dealing with it. It's really bad.
It's really, really bad. And, I know immigration is a hot issue in many, many countries around the world, but like climate migration is an issue. People are not, it's not just bad enough that there's wars and occupations and all of that, but they're also needing to travel and move because they can't survive in the climate.
I've told a lot of people that this is just the beginning. There's a lot of migration in the world, because we are so damaged areas that we've made a mess.
But I feel like my art is a way of speaking to that
Yeah.
in that isn't like knocking you over your head.
Yeah.
It's inviting you into the conversation, just like we're having this conversation. And like, let's all talk about it. What can each of us do?
Yeah, it's a safe place where people can start to contemplate privately and even address and even think about it through their busy lives.
Definitely. And another influence that I feel deserves to be said is that as a person from the Jewish culture, one of our prevailing wisdoms and influences is this expression tikkun olam. And in Hebrew, it translates to healing the world.
Oh, wow.
That it's incumbent on all of us to do something to heal the world. I grew up in a family where tikkun olam is a thing. Like, we got to pick up the trash on the road, we have to repair our clothing, everyone has to pitch in and make the world a better place in some large or small way.
I think that's our generations. That's what we were taught. That's a sense of community, a sense of how you make change as you start with yourself, your family, your community, and then change happens. Yeah, it's not.
Well, we're feminists. We grew up with like the personal is political.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. So tell me, in your studio, how do you start off making a piece, an installation piece? Where do you start? How does this come into fruition?
Okay, well, I'm going to have to sort of weave a little bit here. I'll try to, I'll try to pull all the threads together. First of all, I love working large. I absolutely love to work large. If money was never an issue, I'd just be working monumental all the time. Wow. So I do make smaller work that's affordable, that like normal people can buy it. But I do love working large. And last fall, I had done a very large white mural called Devotional, sort of an homage to birds, to endangered birds. And it was accepted at the World of Threads Festival outside of Toronto. And that festival is usually a biennale, but because of COVID, it hadn't happened in 5 years. And when I was younger, I would be like, oh, World of Threads. And I would like look at all the artwork. And suddenly I was in the World of Threads. Like, my work was, accepted. It was a great honor. And then concurrently, another mural of mine, that's another story, had been acquired by the Museum of Arts and Design in New York. And the museum sent the art handlers to like pack up and pick up the work. So I was like, ooh, that's nice. And then I thought, hey, you guys, can you give me an estimate for like moving this other mural, up to Toronto? So the estimate came back $12,000.
Wow.
I was like, okay, that's not going to work. How am I going to get this piece up to Toronto? And so, as a girl who grew up, sewing all her clothing, I'm like, what would my mother do now? So I cut the work up into 18 pieces. It was completely nerve-wracking. I did test it on one smaller piece first, and I put zippers.
That's what I saw that in one of the videos or whatever. It was ingenious.
I mean, it was like, thank you, Mom. Thank you, Auntie.
Oh, that was ingenious.
I'm sure they're up there chortling away,
Here too, to ship because it's not damaged.
No, I could put it in boxes that were like a regular woman can sling over her shoulder and, walk through the airport. Right. So I even paid for my assistant to fly to Toronto with the 2 boxes. I found an artist for her to stay with, of course. And I gave her even a play day in Toronto because she'd never been there. And all of that was $1,200.
Oh, you smart. You're smart. You're smart. Ingenious. I love it. So you went there and then you just zipped it all up and installed it.
So I went after it was installed so I could be at the opening and all of that. And can I brag and say that I won the People's Choice Award?
I saw that. I was like, oh my God, that is so great.
So that was very
That
was very
you,
gratifying.
You don't need a degree to be outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And let that be a lesson to anyone listening to this that doesn't have the means or opportunity. Like, that is not a deterrent to you being an artist. If you have a problem with that, call me. You know?
You should be teaching courses. Do you teach courses?
I do consulting. I do a little limited consultation for artists to give them a hand. I feel like I have a lot to offer, and it's an opportunity to pass it along. So people can look me up on Instagram and, you know, get in touch with me if they're interested in that. To answer your question a little more succinctly, now I'm building a brand new piece with these feathers right behind me. I'm doing a whole series now, Renee, of black feathers.
Oh, wow.
So I just started building a mural. It's on today's Instagram. You'll have to check it and like it. I'm starting a brand new mural called Blackbird. It's all going to be black feathers, but as you can see, it's not black. You know, it's like gold and red and, you know, a million other colors, but it reads like black. And this is the first time I'm making a piece, Renee, where I'm starting with the background and the zippers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it would be a really large piece.
Yeah. It's going to be like, maybe like 10 feet across.
Wow.
Yes. Maybe 7 feet high, you know, well, we're just starting, so we'll see.
I mean, that's amazing to me because, you know, I'm looking at all the colors. You just make the colors blend so nicely in and out. So what do? Put them on there and then you go back and look? Or do you have the pattern in mind or you just go?
No. I put them on. Also, I have a team practice. I work with 6 other Mexican women. I'm very, very fortunate. And let me stop and say, like a lot of artists today, I practice my art in more than one country. I'm based in Durham, North Carolina at this time in my life because I have grandchildren there. And I also am fortunate to have a gorgeous studio on Lake Chapala, Mexico. So I bounce between those 2 locations. And here in Mexico.
Why did you do the 2 different studios in 2 different places?
Well, like a lot of people, I need to be in more than one place, you know. That's another longer conversation, but you know, you look at artists and they go, yeah, based in like Berlin, New York, and London.
You know that. I love it when they say that. I'm like, wow, that's like, I love it.
But to answer your question, I'm based in North Carolina because I'm from the US and my family lives there and I have grandchildren. So that's where I need to be. Okay. And I also have a studio there. And that way, when work is moving around in the US, I have, you know, a place. And in fact, let me plug that I'm having a wonderfully exciting solo show in Raleigh, North Carolina, that opens in December this year.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Thanks. And for people who use social media, this is wild. I was invited to show in Raleigh, North Carolina by this wonderful curator, Stacy Bloom Rexode, who found me on LinkedIn.
Not surprised. I found a lot of artists on LinkedIn. Not surprised.
So for those of you listening that are social media, do not underestimate the importance of that part of your art practice.
Yeah, I do. Most of my artists that are not locally that I know, I've gotten from LinkedIn. It's a professional site.
It's international. It's a great way to, you know, connect with people.
Exactly.
It's very important. Very, very important. So that's going to be a huge show, 2 stories, and it's a long show. So it will be from early December this year to the end of April next year.
Ooh, that's a long one.
5 months. So anyone who's listening that has people in North Carolina, let me know.
That's nice. That's
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really exciting. And then to be perfectly honest, being in Mexico part-time, having a team that's populated by hardworking Mexican women is something I can afford at this stage of life. I'm finally retired. Thank you.
just
You know,
now you're just getting started.
I'm 71 and I feel like, let me at it. You know?
I'm saying with my art magazine, I want to eventually travel all around the world, and I have some other things I want to do with the magazine. Oh, I feel like I'm just getting started. This is the
Mi casa is su casa. You are welcome here anytime. I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
That would be great. That would really be great. So I can afford a team practice here, and I can afford to make monumental work here.
Yes.
And I couldn't afford that in the US.
Yeah.
That's just facts.
Yeah. Plus,
it's just a different standard of living.
You're exposing them and providing employment for them. I think that is wonderful.
You know, thank you for saying that. It's very important to me. And let me digress and tell you a funny story that will explain. This is another piece of like, we are who we are. Like, we can't be who we're not.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So when my son, I have 2 biological children and 2 foster children.
Yes.
So when my oldest son was like, I don't know, 10 or 11, he was like, Mom, you're a sexist. And I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
I said, what do you mean? He said, you have a business and you only hire women.
Oh, wow.
But it was like bookkeeping and billing, and it was like a pink collar job. So I had to explain like pink collar, blue collar, white collar, like class. You know, we went through all of that. And when he was in college, I called him and I said, Jonah, I just wanted you to know I'm not a sexist anymore. I hired a man.
He laughed. That's so cute that he said.
Isn't that cute? But here's the thing. I grew up, my mom was a twin. So, you know, now a lot of people are raised by 2 moms. I'm a child of the 50s. I was raised by 2 moms, but they were twins, you know. And we spent our weekends like in our own little sweatshop. We made all of our clothing together. We would say like, oh, there's a wedding coming. Do you need a new outfit? Let's sew something for you. You know, and the next weekend it was like, oh, school's starting. Do you need like a new skirt? Let's sew that for you. Wow. So I always worked with a group of women. Mm-hmm. Then I worked, you know, in business with a group of women. And here I am again working with a group of women.
Oh, wow. Oh, you're just so talented. I love it.
But it's like normal for me. That's my point, is that we are who we are. Mm-hmm. And working with women and being at this stage of life, and as you say, offering reliable employment, honorable employment, interesting employment to women who haven't had the opportunities even that I have had, you know.
That's what the exposure
is really important to me. I actually have a patron program to help support them and their families. Oh. So I really feel like that's another full circle part of my life.
Exactly. It's very empowering. Exactly.
Very.
I love it. I love it. I just absolutely love it. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yes. Let me just look at my little list here.
She's really got a list.
I know. I should show it to you. Afterwards, I'll show it to you. Let's see. I told you about what's coming up, the show, the solo show. This year, I'm in group shows in Australia, in Italy. I have a curator in Italy that's been promoting my work, which is really very gratifying.
Very good.
And I'm going to, this is so exciting. I was accepted at a textile residency in Iceland.
Oh, wow. I have an artist here, Connie, and she does installations. She's in Iceland now. I wonder if it's the same type of resident.
Well, there's a couple of regular residencies in Iceland that I've heard of for years. And actually, I ran a residency in Mexico for 12 years.
Oh,
And it's still running. I've handed the reins to somebody else. It's called 360 Xochiquetzal. I should give you that link in the notes. But this is specifically a textile residency.
oh, wow.
I'm so excited.
That's one place I've never been. I've had other people that have been, they say it's fascinating.
I mean, I have a friend who, like, she's been there 3 times. She said that and Nepal are her favorite places to go in the world.
Wow, that's gonna be, oh, I love to see what you're gonna get.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, so let's see that. I wanted to touch that, and
that should be about it.
I wanted to mention a few artists that have really impacted me.
Okay. Okay.
And one of them you'll really appreciate. So in the textile front, I've been for decades following this Colombian artist named Olga de Amaral. She's from Bogota. She's like, I think she's 90 and she's still working, and she's like the bomb. I just like love her work.
Wow.
And of course, El Anatsui, the Ghanaian artist. So everyone loves his monumental work made of like trash. And he has spawned a whole generation of artists, mostly artists of color, also working with recycled materials. Mm-hmm. But one of my very favorite artists is your Nick Cave from Chicago.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that. He's definitely one of my heroes.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know him?
No. I mean, I've met him, but he doesn't, I was just like a googly-eyed person in the audience. But I've seen many. He had a big retrospective in Chicago that went to New York. I saw it last year in New York.
Yes.
I've seen his installations. I saw his horse installation in New York. That was probably 10 years ago. So yeah, he's definitely the sense of materiality. He's, when people are your heroes and sheroes, it's they give you permission more than, it's not like you're copying them. It's like they're giving you permission to just go for it. Yes. So I feel like those are 3 artists that, in my opinion, have just let it rip. And that's what I want to do.
A lot of artists that you probably just don't know. I am certain you're inspiring a lot of people.
Well, thank you. Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Go ahead. Maybe I'll keep them in the video.
Well, I think you should, because you know what? It's a dialogue and you're really an interesting person. So I was curious, you sort of touched on it, but like, you're exposed to artists all over the world. So how do you make your decisions about who to interview? And what drew you to my work? Like, why did you choose me?
Well, I usually make my decisions on first, when I select an artist, it's innate. It's something that draws me to that person. But then I do the research about the artist, about their background, what they're doing, what kind of art they're doing, getting a feel of who that person is. And I'm like, yes, this is the kind of person I want the world to see or know. Some of the artists are well known. Some of them somebody's never heard of, but it's something that I'm interested in. So it's like I'm sharing what I'm interested in, and I like to share it to the world. And they come from every background you can think of, from every different type of art. And usually the people I select, they're very connected to their art. The art is a part of them. It's like intertwined with who they are. No matter what type of art it is, that's usually who I picked. Selected you because I was really drawn again to your installations and the intricacies of it, and the whole story behind, endangered birds, and how you choose not to just paint, endangered birds, but how you do an abstract installation that's real intricate to explain all of that, I think is fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Um,
I
I'm,
was also curious, what kind of art do you surround yourself with, or what kind of art do you collect?
oh God, sculptures, paintings. I wish I could do installations. My place is not big enough for installations. So I don't think there's an art I don't like. You know, out of all the different types of ways a visual artist could express themselves, I even love graffiti art,
Mm-hmm.
murals, because Chicago, thank God, we have a lot of that.
Right.
I
Of
think
course.
why I go to a lot of different places or go to see a lot, because it's not, I can't own everything that I love. So I expose myself and being around it. I
Right.
do.
Right.
I feel
And
blessed to be able
well,
to meet all these people and them to say yes to me when I ask, can I feature you? Because it's coming from the heart. It's something that, oh, I love this. It's like when you buy a new purse or a new outfit, I'm like, oh, let me show you the new outfit I got.
that's great. That's really great. But you're like really a rainmaker. You're just spreading a lot of important ideas. And my last question was, what outcomes do you hope for, from your interviews, like, or for the artists or writers that you interview? Like, what are the outcomes that you would hope for?
Well, one of the outcomes, what we talked about earlier, one of the outcomes that I'm hoping for, I want more people to be engaged with art, to feel comfortable, to trust their choice, that you don't have to go to Art Basel and say, and they tell you, oh, this is what art is. No, that's what they think. I want you to feel comfortable with what you love and seek out and explore and just open horizons. And I want people to know in different parts of the world what other people are doing all over the globe. So you become an explorer and explore and expand
Yeah.
your, not limit yourself to your
Yeah.
little tiny piece of what's up.
Circle. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much in life on earth to explore, and I want people to get out there and explore it. I really do. That's my
Well,
goal.
that's what I love about Instagram. I mean, I get up in the morning and I'm like, what did my colleagues do in Australia last night? Like, it's just a way to see what the art all over the world.
Exactly. Thank God for the internet. There is no reason why every person on the face of the earth, because when I like post or I do any boosting of my art or my magazines, I do from all around, people from all over the world send me messages and stuff, and it's fascinating what people,
Yeah.
what they feel. And for artists that are established, it helps me expose, it helps me to have that particular artist exposed to people who've never heard of you or who wouldn't have access to you. And for emerging artists, it helps them get out there and let them know we are looking at you. People see you. So yeah, it makes it's
And you're worthy of being seen. Like you inviting someone is gives them some gravitas. It gives them, it's like, oh, Renee Rose put them on their interview. I mean, that's like a huge boost.
maybe so. I'm hoping so, because I think one of the things that I'm really concerned about in the United States, I guess all over the world, a lot of local media newspapers have closed down. I mean,
Yes.
there's a really decline of media across the board.
Yes.
There's less coverage for art and culture. They're really not covering it. They'll cover Art Basel, the top stuff, but most artists can't get any coverage. I think that's crazy. So
Yeah. No, you're really doing a public service. To do this is a tremendous public service.
I'm trying to expose as much art as I can, because it deserves to be seen and to be heard about. You're right. And it's just, and most magazines like focus on, oh, representational or we're sculpture. I do all art across the board. I'm not focused on one particular genre.
No, I mean, I went through your interviews to prepare for this, and it was very eclectic. I mean, excellent, but very, very eclectic.
Yes, and I want people to decide. You decide what you like. I'm not throwing it down your throat that you should like abstract or concept because it's in this year. No,
Right.
I don't want to do that. I want to just let you explore, because I'm an explorer. Come on, let's explore together and see
I
how
love it.
brilliant, brilliant. I'm just blessed that I haven't had a problem finding artists, and they are really excited and they really enjoy me, you know, exposing.
Well, feels like you're right here, you know, in the studio. And I mean, I could do this all day with you. So, but I really want to thank you very much for choosing me and for responding to the work and feeling that connection that we have to each other.
Yes.
I'm very, very grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time, because I know you're busy, and I really
A pleasure, truly a pleasure.
Okay, I will talk to you soon.
You will.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Remember, you can come here anytime.
Bye-bye.